Okay, thank you all for joining us today. Again, we're lucky to be able to join remotely, especially with today's rainy weather, but we are looking forward to possibly doing an in-person neighborhood meeting later this month or later this year in a few months. But for now, thank you all for joining us today. We'll do a little bit of housekeeping first, and then we'll go ahead and jump right in. Alyssa, can you go through these?
Thank you everyone for joining us. A couple of ways to participate in tonight's meeting. If you have any questions or you'd like to speak during the meeting, we ask that you use the raise your hand feature. And also if you have any questions, if you can type them in the chat box, if you prefer to type them rather than say them yourself. And the next one, if anyone is dialing in, I don't see anyone dialing in. You would dial *9 to raise your hand and then dial *6 to unmute yourself. And then there is Spanish interpretation available if anyone needs it. If I see anyone join, we can make another announcement midway the meeting to ask if anyone needs Spanish interpretation. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we like to kick things off with just a little bit of information about the Neighborhood Association. It's really just made up of neighbors, such as those on the call. So and we're all volunteers. So we invite anyone and everyone, if you're interested, if there's something that kind of piques your interest during this call, please raise your hand either during the meeting or afterwards. And I included in here some areas that we need help. So we're really looking to involve more students and the youth in our community. So many of the schools, high schools and junior high require community service hours. So there's lots of opportunity to help within our own community. You'll hear about some events that are coming up. We could definitely use help planning the events and the day of the events. We just formed a traffic committee and we'll give you an update about that. We also formed a community cleanup group that Ms. Gay Olivos is leading, but we can also use help with graphic design if you know graphic design, or if there's a student that's out there wanting to get some experience, you know, what better way than to give back to the community by helping out. Fundraising and grant writing, those are two areas that we're focusing on. And then there are a couple of projects where if you're good with your hands, like gardening or carpentry, we're working on that as far as our little library is concerned. So definitely reach out if you are interested in volunteering. One second. Okay, so I'd like to welcome Public Works. We have a representative who's going to give us an important permit parking update. So they're gathering residents' feedback on what changes we'd like to see, just feedback overall on the parking permit process. So welcome and thank you so much for joining us. We'd love to hear any latest updates that you have.
Hi, thank you, Irene. Again, my name is Ruben Castaneda. I'm with the City of Santa Ana Traffic Engineering Department, a public works agency. Thank you for having us tonight. As Irene was mentioning, the city is undergoing a revamping, if you will, of the entire permit parking program. As you may be aware, this is a 30+ year old program that's been around, and so far I believe there's been upwards of 9,000 permits issued citywide in various neighborhoods. Now, as I'm talking, I realize I do have like a few slides. Am I able to share?
Yeah, let me make you co-host.
Sorry, yeah, I should have caught myself a little bit earlier.
So you should be able to share now.
Are you all able to see that?
No, not yet. Oh, yeah, perfect. Yeah,
You
we
see
can
that
see.
now? Okay,
Yeah, we
perfect.
can see the slide.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that again. And so, like I was saying, the city is looking to revamp the entire program. Everything is really on the table. I think the city has acknowledges and realizes that the program is antiquated, and things have changed in the city since it was first implemented. So the city is looking to hire a consultant to go ahead and perform this study. They would be analyzing all the existing parking regulations and trends here in the city and elsewhere, just to compare how our program is doing compared to other locations. So they would survey other agencies for the best practices currently being used. They would be conducting extensive public outreach. This initial stage that we're working on right now is just the beginning. So in the future, we would appreciate if you would continue to allow us to reach out to you to continue to reach, engage, and get your input as this program is being reevaluated. And then the consultant would be tasked with developing options and alternatives for improvements. They would be looking at ways to balance the parking needs of the residents and visitors, as well as the commuters that just happen to be passing by. Um, Streamlining the administration process, how we currently process, the request for new parking permit locations, and once established, how we administer the issuance of permits. And then again, the consultant would be relying heavily on the community outreach, and they would be tasked to go through all the comments that we have received and address them one by one. Currently, we have a tentative schedule. Like I said, right now, we're in the kind of outreach, the initial outreach phase. Between February and March, we're trying to reach every single neighborhood in the city, as many as we can get to by the end of next month. We're looking at issuing requests for proposal to look for consultants that can help us do this work in April. And then in July, we would be looking at starting this study via the consultant. And within a year from this July, we would be looking at completing the study and implementing the revisions, if appropriate, by September of 2023. There's going to be a lot of moving parts, and this is kind of our best case scenario. Implementation or of the permanent parking it happens every on odd years. The alternative to 2023 possibly may be that by 2025, if depending on how things go and how much community input we get and how much we actually have to revise the program, we may need to push it out to 2025 for implementation. And again, that's given that those years are when all the new permits are issued. And I'm talking about the permits that go on the vehicles. So that's, it's very, at this point, it's very high level where we're at with this study of the current program. And we're just reaching out to all the neighborhoods, trying to make them aware that what's coming. And at this point, we'd be happy to take any initial comments. But as well, the city has established an email that you can use to send all of your comments regarding the program. Anything's on the table, as I mentioned earlier, I believe. from the number of permits that are currently being issued to how they're being issued or how the program is currently assessing streets to establish permit parking. It's a complete look from beginning to end of the entire program, and we really are looking to implement what the community wants and needs. I do see, Gay, I believe you have your hand up. Do you have something you wanted to share with us? Or ask? I think you're muted right now. Elisa, are they able to unmute themselves?
Yeah, Gay should be able to.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yes. You know what? That is an incredible undertaking. And your dates, that is pretty aggressive, in my opinion, because you do have what, 63 neighborhoods?
Right. Yes.
Right? But everybody has something to say, I'm sure, about this. I've been hearing the feedback on the neighborhood Facebook page and the Santa High School Alumni Association page. So it's a hot potato, okay? I can tell you that right now. There's a lot of discussion going on back and forth on this issue. Being a homeowner myself, I am concerned about the parking permit. It upsets my husband lividly. I can't even tell you that we pay for parking and we can't even, and we own our home, right? And we can't even park on our front of our house, because if we move our car, somebody will take it immediately. So it's kind of like I don't know, it's crazy, right? It's crazy. But I think that one thing that I would like this third party to inquire on is the responsibility of these apartment owners. These big corporations that own these apartments, I think by law, they are required to provide their tenants parking, which I don't know if that's being implemented, one. And two, the reality is the struggle's real, right? So you have an apartment that's supposed to only be a 2-bedroom for, 2 people, or for a family of 4, it's a family of 8. And you have 5 of those people with vehicles. Okay, so I hope that the third party really looks into that and holds these apartment complexes responsible, because that's part of the problem. And I kid you not, I had somebody knock on my door, and I talked to Irene about this, asked me if she could rent my driveway to park. And I was like, whoa, stranger, complete stranger, never saw her before in my life. But that is how people are looking to find parking in Santa Ana. And I want to know why neighborhoods like Washington Square, I ride my bike there, quite often, you can't park there at all, even if you have a permit. So I want to know why that's happening in certain neighborhoods and not. So I'm glad that it's being addressed, and I'm glad that you're being very aggressive. But yeah, I definitely want to put my input on that. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for those comments. Exactly, everything you said is what we're what we want to hear, frankly. Yeah, and it is an aggressive schedule. And part of why I'm here by myself tonight is because we've divided our entire traffic engineering group to try to reach out as many neighborhoods as we can. We realize it's a major undertaking, but we're taking it very serious, and we really want to provide what the community needs. And if what we have now ends up being what we need, then I guess we'll have to assess it that way. But I have a feeling that it's going to go on major changes. And again, it's going to be with your input as a community, as a resident of the city, that we can reach hopefully something that works for everyone. Thank you. Anyone else?
I have a more of a question. Thank you again for I noticed that there were other neighborhood association meetings happening today, and so thank you for also making Willard a priority. What do parking permit fees go towards and how are those determined? Will you be evaluating the rate that you charge for parking permits?
Everything's on the table. Right now, I'm not 100% sure how they came about the price of the current permit. I know right now it's, I believe, almost $75, $74.95 or so per permit. But even that is on the table, reassessing how that fee was implemented and figuring out a way whether or not, it continues to be that or less or whatever it may be. One thing I do want to note that I do know is that the program is not, it's being subsidized with city funds. It doesn't pay for itself. And so while it does go towards, paying the cost of printing those permits, the administration cost of it, we have the 75 yearly permits that everybody within those areas gets. It really just goes directly back into the program. But I do want to point out that it doesn't pay for the program to run.
Thank you. And I do second with something that Gay mentioned about finding a way to really make the rental rental unit owners more accountable, especially in our community. Over 50% of the residents are in rental units. And I think that's really driving what we're seeing as far as impacted parking. We do have a little bit of relief, such as St. Peter Church. They rent out their lot that's normally used for Sunday services for parking. Maybe there's some other options where, I don't know if Willard School could be used for some overflow parking as well, but really it comes down to the owners of these rental units, and they need to account for more parking for their residents.
Right, I think, yeah, definitely, most definitely the consultant would have to look into those and explore options of potentially entering into some sort of agreement with the school district to see if perhaps, they'd be willing to entertain, allowing for parking overnight by the local community there, local residents. Maybe, again, it could be via maybe even a permit program to be able to park within the school district properties. It's anything's on the table. It's a complete revamp of the program, and that sort of comment is what we need to hear so that we know how to task the consultant on what to look for. But yes, thank you. I do have Nathaniel, I think, had his hand raised, and also Miss
Bianca. It's Bianca, yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'll change that.
No, okay, Bianca. So maybe Nathaniel, since you had your hand up a little bit earlier, if you would maybe unmute yourself. There you go.
Thanks. I should start with, I'm actually the Ward 5 Commissioner for ETAC, so I'm glad to be here at my own neighborhood's association meeting. So happy to meet you all. And if ever you have any ideas for the ETAC Commission that you want to be sure are voiced, feel free to contact me. Happy to share my email and contact. In any event, I also offered some comments on the parking program when it was presented to the ETAC Commission. And I live in Willard near 17th and Flower. And my experience with the current parking program was, hey, how do I get a parking permit? I live in an apartment. And they said, ask your landlord, which seemed a little standoffish at the time. That was almost 5 years ago now. But nonetheless, one idea that I do have, because I know parking is a big issue in our neighborhood, is visitor passes. Because, I have one parking spot allotted to me in the apartment where I live. And it'd be nice, like during the holidays, to be able to either give, my family members who are in town a visitor pass just for a day or a few days, or vice versa. If they want to park in my spot, then I can park in the neighborhood with a visitor pass. That way there's not such an issue. And I just want to have some, host some folks, but we can't really do that with our neighborhood's parking situation.
Right. Yeah. Right now, apartments, as you mentioned, they are completely excluded from being able to get any kind of permit. But again, with this revamping, that would be something that would be looked into. but yes, right now that program doesn't allow.
I was going to say something similar. I'm Bianca Marchese. I apologize for coming in a little late. I'm the vice president of the Willard Association. I happen to live in a condo that has garages, thankfully, but I do want to say my aunt lives in the Willard neighborhood and she lives off Durant in an apartment. There are several of, and again, not to beat a dead horse, but several of her neighbors, they're couples or, a parent and a child, and they have more than one car. They have 2 or 3 cars. And like Nathaniel said, she has 1 parking spot assigned to her. And like Irene and Gay said, most of our neighborhood, a majority of our neighborhood, they are renters. And, so I think our neighborhood is unique in that. And so parking is definitely an issue. We live on 10th and Parton, and there are lots and lots of times that we see people park like in front of our house or whatever and walk a block or 2 over to the apartments because there's just no parking. I happen to be on the side of Willard that is closer to the courthouse. So we actually have metered parking. But we also have that same issue of watching people have to walk, far. They'll come and put money in the meter and then walk back to their apartment just because there simply is not enough parking in the neighborhood. Again, not to beat a dead horse, but I think Willard is unique in that. And so please take that to the consultant because, what works for Wilshire Square or Floral Park is not going to work for Willard. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for those comments. So yeah, most definitely, I think they'd have to look into tailoring the program for sort of I guess neighborhood specific conditions, right? Not one size will probably fit all, as you all have probably already seen. And so, yes, thank you for that. Daniel, I think yes.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to add one other comment, which was that in that part of Willard, with close to Civic Center, there's a lot of empty lots that sit vacant overnight. And I don't know if there's any sort of incentive program for the owners of those properties or those lots to participate in some sort of parking permit program where people can park off peak hours, and especially because they're just sitting vacant overnight. And it might also help alleviate some of the issues I know that have been arising, like for example, at El Centro, might also use up the space better than some of the issues that have been occurring there in their parking lot.
Yeah, so I think that would be something similar to engaging the school district to see what if the city can do to maybe encourage these property owners to agree to something like this while their lots are empty. Yeah, that's definitely something. Don't know the legality of all those things, but I'm sure the consultant would be able to look into that further if we task them to do that. Thank you. Irene?
And Nathaniel took my thunder. That was actually the area that I was thinking of as well. That could be an opportunity. Another issue with that area is that there is often graffiti and trash left. And I feel like by having residents parked there, that could even help alleviate just creating awareness of that area, because it does become an empty, vacant lot with no one, no one walking by there, nobody by there. And I know one of the lots, the one that is closest by the Santa Ana Library, it's currently used for free parking for the Friday night Munchies event that's held across the street at the library. So people can park for free there, walk across to the event and come back. So I know they are open to something like that. It just would be a matter of, like you said, negotiating and finding out if that's a possibility.
Right. Yeah, and then also, it's finding what a mechanism to adopt to be able to do something like that, through the city, or maybe it's something that is done between them and the neighborhood associations or local residents. yeah, and again, the legality and the of aspect of those things would be something that maybe the consultant would need to look into to see, well, how can we do something like that? Is it even possible? Has anybody else done it, and how they did do it? And so, yes, thank you for those comments as well.
One other thing, and Irene, correct me if I'm wrong, but the vacant lot on 10th and Flower, yes. The city owns that right now. I know we have plans in the future to make that a park, but I understand the legalities of, private ownership of a parking lot, but the city owns that vacant lot on 10th and Flower. Is that something that maybe we can use until the park is built to alleviate some of these traffic or parking crunches that happen in the neighborhood?
So, I mean, that's something that, again, we can take a look into. If it starts becoming kind of a common input that we receive, I think it's definitely going to be worthwhile exploring. But I guess one thing that just maybe comes to mind personally is that if a lot is vacant and like especially today when it rained, that surface parking lot would need to be somehow repurposed to where cars would not be tracking out mud or creating other conditions, so it's essentially creating public parking spaces that are safe in all conditions. But yeah, no, thank you for those comments. I'll definitely relay those over. And I just want to kind of reiterate though that just so that I don't miss anything, I know this meeting is being recorded. There is that email for that I believe you guys are all still being able to see, where all your input and even it's something if you think about that you didn't or you just can't, it's not coming up right now, later on, send your comments there to that email, and we'll be sure to take a look at those and address them as best we can. Anyone else? I do have one more item, not entirely related to the permanent parking program, but it is related to improvements potentially in the neighborhood. Is there anybody else that wants to talk about this item right now? Or can I move on just very quickly, a few minutes?
Of course, yes. Yeah, we'll make sure to share out. So in the chat, I dropped in the email address, and I saw online that there was also a phone number for those that may want to call, but we'll share this out on our social media and in our newsletter as well.
Okay, thank you. And then just like I said, very quickly, I don't want to take too much of your meeting's time, but I don't know if I believe we've received support from the neighborhood in the past, but every 2 years, the city applies for grant funding from the federal government, the Active Transportation Program. This year is another program, grant funding program year, in which we will be reapplying for projects that we haven't been able to get awarded. The applications come out in March and they're due in June. So far, I think the city's been able to get, or our department, about $60 million citywide for various projects. So in the Willard neighborhood, we have 2 projects or 2 applications that we're working on. One of them is for improvements along Ross Street between Civic Center. And I believe you can see what I show right now. It's the map, right? Can you guys see that? Thank you. And this is these are improvements to help for both pedestrians and bicyclists along Ross Street that we have been trying to get funding for. As you can see, it has to do with, like here on 3rd Street, we would do bulb outs, essentially reduce the crossing for pedestrians, especially for the senior center there. We have a lot of seniors crossing there, and we're trying to shorten their crossing to make it safer and expose them less while they're trying to cross the street. It would be redesigning the bike lane. I'm not sure how it is right now, but mostly in this application, we're looking to enhance the pedestrian, environment. Here by our city hall, we have 2 crossings there where we would be proposing raised crosswalks. And then over here north of between Civic Center and 17th Street, we would also be narrowing down the street again to help, shorten those crossings for kids crossing. We have a lot of kids using this corridor here, and we're trying to minimize their exposure to when they're crossing the street. This application here is about $3.5 million that we would be asking for these improvements. And so if we were to be successful, on this application, this is sort of the improvements that we would hope to be able to do there. Also, in the Willard neighborhood, part of the Willard neighborhood, it's I don't know if anyone here in this meeting was able to be part of the Safe Routes to School program, a study that was done, a few years back, where we hired a consultant to go to every school and evaluate all the routes that students take to get to school and identify any deficiencies along those routes. Well, for Carver, it was this one was for Carver Elementary, Heroes, Willard, and Wilson. We identified a scope of work in which we surveyed these routes and identified missing wheelchair ramps, non-compliant wheelchair ramps, deficient sidewalk, uplifted or missing sidewalk. And so we developed a scope of work, and also similar to what you saw in Ross, pedestrian crossings, enhance their visibility, try to make them safer, reduce those crossings for the various schools. We developed the scope, and this project application is about $10 million that we would be looking for federal dollars to improve and to enhance the safety of pedestrians. So, without going and taking too much of your all your time, just wanted to put this out there that we're going to be doing this. We're hoping, I know in the past, like I said, we have received your support, and we hope that we can continue to see your support. We would be reaching out to the neighborhood president with a letter in which we were hoping that we can put in your letterhead that shows your support for these projects. And I can share all of these proposed project enhancements so that you can maybe take a look at them with a little bit more time. But again, I just wanted to put it out there that we are in that grant cycle year, and that we would be reaching out to you. So thank you. And if you have any questions about this, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Castaneda. Yeah, this is great.
Hold on. My hand was raised. I do have a question regarding that.
Yes, go ahead.
One thing that brings to mind, sir, where is Carver? Can you mention Carver? I don't think Carver is in the Willard neighborhood. Where's Carver?
Well, and this one is over there by Bristol and Pacific. Sorry, what happened is we grouped schools within that are in close proximity to each other, not necessarily by neighborhood, but within close proximity to each other, so that we can try to leverage one with the other.
Okay, and that's great. The kids, of course, absolutely, but I don't hear El Sol in that arena. And El Sol, I hear Wilson good. I hear Edo good. I hear Willard good, but I don't hear El Sol. And El Sol is right there on Ross and Halesworth and Ross, between Broadway and Ross. And I ride my bike there every single day. And I'm telling you, there was a great need for traffic safety in that area, and I don't see it addressed. So that's one concern of mine. The second
Mhm.
concern of mine is the One Broadway Plaza. I was involved in that One Broadway Plaza, which I was against, but yet it passed by the citizens. And part of that, the agreement with Caribou Industries was that he was supposed to pay for the upkeep of the streets. So I want to know why our city is picking up the tab in that vicinity when it should have been the responsibility of Caribou Industries.
Well, I mean, those, I know a little bit about the conditions of approval that get assessed to development projects. They don't become effective until his project is constructed, or if he starts, building his project. His application got approved, but he hasn't moved forward with actual implementation of his project. So at this point, he's really not necessarily on the hook for anything until such time that he decides to move forward with it. So as far as that's concerned, I think that's kind of where that's at. But in the meantime, we know that the neighborhoods and the routes to school for kids are in need of enhancement. So we don't want to, and plus whatever conditions or whatever improvements that project might have been required to do probably didn't address or go into the details of the routes for students. It was probably more related to whatever impacts that project's traffic was going to create. Again, but that's me just talking about and not having been involved during the application of that project. But a lot of times that's what happens. I just in general terms is they get they're required to do improvements related solely to the traffic that they're going to be generating.
Mr. Castaneda, could you
Yes.
touch a little bit, just to piggyback on what Gay mentioned, if El Sol was taken into account in the route and that area there? And then you mentioned Willard, but I didn't see were there specific improvements around the Willard Intermediate?
So here's, I'll do like a little quick zoom here. So for Willard Intermediate, all of these yellow kind of plus signs or crosses that you probably see from your end are enhanced crossing intersections, where we would be increasing the visibility of those crosswalks. And so here's Willard, and I believe on this one too we have number 6. Right. So we would be, that's what these are at. Ross, this is Ross and Washington. We would be doing the bulb out and enhancing, we're doing high visibility crosswalks. Same with Broadway at Washington. Broadway, I'm not exactly sure, I believe just that one street west of Main Street itself at Washington. So just all these various locations, 15th at Broadway, right here, Ross and 15th, Ross and 17th, anywhere, any crossing, any intersection that was determined is used by the students currently would be getting a treatment, either reducing the crossing distance and or just increasing the visibility of those crosswalks.
What does that mean? I'm sorry, I see on 15th and Parton, install 4 high visibility continental crosswalks. What does that mean? Does that mean like just painting them yellow, or because we know 15th and Parton is actually an area that we're concerned about as well. So
Mhm.
can you tell us a little bit more, like, what does that exactly mean, the high visibility crosswalk?
So traditionally, what we've done throughout the city is for wherever there's high pedestrian activity, uh, um, we just paint two white lines or yellow lines if it's a crossing for students. A high visibility is what you see, something similar to what's already, for example, right now, Main and Civic Center, how it looks more like a ladder. And so it enhances the visibility of that crosswalk for the driver. In this case, because it is on a route to school, it would be that same pattern, that high visibility, but it would be yellow crossing. I mean, a yellow paint.
Right.
And then in this case of Parton and 15th, I'm looking that we are also proposing to add new wheelchair ramps, directional ramps, and reducing the crossing distance. So something similar to what went in over there by Civic Center, but without the circles in the middle, without the race medians in the middle.
Okay.
So it essentially what that does, it provides more visibility to the pedestrian right before they cross, because we're bulbing out the curb where they're having to stand out in visibility of the oncoming traffic a little bit more, because the curves allow them to do that. And then it shortens that distance that they're on the actual street pavement when they're going from one side to the other. Where right now it's probably their entire walking distance on the street is probably around 45 feet or so. By doing this, we can get it down to about 22 feet.
Okay.
So their time on the street in potential conflict with the driver is reduced by half.
And I think, Irene, this is good because it's going to slow people down on Parton.
Definitely. That's one thing I just wanted to mention, Mr. Castaneda. We have a traffic safety initiative, and just Parton from 17th down to Civic Center is an area of concern that we've started to speak with Mr. Frank Ariano. He came to one of our meetings a couple months ago.
Okay.
So this is really good news. But yes, if you would like our support, definitely, I think if you're open to some more feedback from us on particular routes or intersections to look at, we'd like to share that information with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Is this available somewhere for us to look at? It's really hard to see on the screen, or this is all proposed right now. This has not been.
Well, it's not available anywhere, but I can definitely share it. That's something that I can maybe through Elisa get Irene's contact, or whoever whoever I can give it to so they can distribute. But yeah, we could definitely share. It's also in actually, now that I think about it, this is our safe routes to school program. Like I said earlier, I think it was 2016 or 2017 that we hired a consultant to go to every single school in the city, elementary, middle, and high school, and actually walk some of the routes that students would take to get to school from home. And then these meetings were held with the local school parents and the principal. And so these plans were already prepared with input from the parents in the community at the time. Now, that's not to say that they are not, I mean, they were adopted by our city council, but if we feel there's a location that merits additional enhancements from a traffic standpoint, we could try to see if we can add those improvements as part of the application, for sure.
Can you tell me what's going, I'm sorry, maybe I should wait, but what's going on at Parton and Washington? What are you guys proposing that you put in there?
The same as 15th and Parton.
Okay.
Is reducing the pedestrian crossings and high visibility for the actual marked crosswalks there.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic, Irene. I really think it's gonna slow people down, or at least I hope so. My goodness.
We're trying to get creative. I know sometimes it's nearly impossible to correct recklessness, but we're trying to do from an engineering side everything we can think of, and trying to be innovative in terms of what improvements we can put out there to help in, reduce those speeds and and create more awareness.
That's great. Thank you so much. We have a lot of pedestrians in this neighborhood and a lot of bike riders and kids who ride their skateboards, and it's terrifying to watch how fast the cars come fly down Parton between 17th and Civic Center. It's like the Autobahn. Nathaniel's shaking his head. It's terrifying, honestly.
Yeah.
And I'm a teacher and a principal, so I just couldn't imagine, having to hear a child get hit or something in the morning or the afternoon. It would just be devastating. So I appreciate this. Thank you.
Of
Yeah,
course, thank
and
you.
on that note, we do have a comment or question from Jaime Chavez. Would speed bumps around or speed pads be around the school be considered?
Those require an assessment to determine or validate any sort of speeding. Now, speed humps are strictly for residential streets where the current speed limit is actually 25 miles per hour or less. Our current policy doesn't allow for speed humps on Collector or any street that has posted speed limit higher than 25 miles per hour. And so in terms of Washington, I don't recall if I know there's portions of it that are strictly 25 currently. And so, but we would need to do an analysis to determine or to validate that whether or not there is in fact speeding occurring based on the parameters that we look for. And if there is, then that potentially could be something that we could look at implementing. And I know right now there's a scope that was put together based on what you will have a little bit more time to see when I share these plans with you. But that's not to say that that's the end. These were plans that were created based on community input, a few years back. But we realized in traffic engineering that things change, patterns, traffic patterns change, people come, people go. And when new people come into the city, sometimes they bring bad habits from wherever they come from. Sometimes we got, people bringing in good habits. So, it goes both ways, but we do realize it's an ever changing thing. And every new school year, we have to tackle those changes. But yeah, that's I'll leave it at that. Nathaniel?
So you said that in order to possibly consider installing any speed bumps, there'd have to be a separate assessment and separate findings. Can the data that was collected for the Safe Route to School program not be used for trying to figure out speed bumps?
The data that was collected was more along the routes to schools. So it didn't look actually into the speed limits or into speeding issues in neighborhoods. It just looked at the routes and how can those pedestrian routes be improved to improve their safety. So particularly sidewalks, if there was any uplifted or missing sidewalks that's affecting the ability of a student to get from point A to point B, being home to school, missing wheelchair ramps for those that have disabilities. Do we have missing or even non-compliant ramps? Are some of these crossings way too wide where they're we're exposing the kids for too long of a period when they're trying to get from one side of the street to another? So things like that. Do we have a lot of kids using bicycles or skateboarding? How can we make it safer for them? that are trying to get to school. So in some cases, bike lanes, were being proposed, or some sort of bicycle infrastructure, again, to try to bring awareness to the driver that there's bicyclists in the area, and for us, try to make it safer for them.
So it sounds like speed maybe was not one factor that was considered in the safe routes to school
It,
analysis.
the study didn't go through the entire neighborhood and do speed surveys to determine, to assess that. So, but that's something that we could still take a look at and determine for in areas that are of high concern to the community.
I have my hand raised. This is my last comment, I swear.
Yes, yes, that's okay.
Well, I have to giggle because it doesn't make sense to me. I would think that any school in Santa Ana, if your true intent is not yours per se, but the whole committee, the people that you hire to do these studies and all those individuals, if their core sense is to protect the students to and from school, which I'm for because I take my kids to school every single day, speed bumps would be around every school in Santa Ana. Apparently it's clear that these people that are doing these surveys don't take their kids to school every day. That is clear. Okay, that not you, but I'm clearly seeing the picture here. You don't understand the danger that you put these children in when those cars are speeding down that street because they're late to get to the courthouse, they're late to get to their county offices, and now they're late and they race down these streets while we're walking and riding our bikes to school. So what I don't understand, and I live in Santa all my life, and I'm around the city a lot on my bike, why are there speed bumps in front of Guarantee Chevrolet off of 17th Street, which is not even close to a school? It's close to a liquor store, but not close to a school. Why are there speed bumps down Washington in front of the hospital all the way down to Lincoln Street from Maine? No school there. But here at Willard, where we have schools going to Edoas, Wilson, Santa High School, El Sol, and all the daycares, there's no speed bumps. And I'm not kidding you, these cars are speeding down those streets. It's scary. It is not safe. So I don't know what it's going to take for a child to get run over and die for somebody to listen to us. Truly. And I guess that's all I have to say for today.
Thank you for that. I understand where you're coming from, and those locations, without knowing the details of how and when those locations qualify for speed humps, I'm sure went through the same process that any other street here in the city has to go through to be able to qualify, because all that stuff gets documented, and we need to make sure that we're consistent with our policy, that we don't deviate from it. So yeah, I understand, those locations were probably not or are not next to schools, but if they're considered local streets with 25-mile-per-hour speed limits, and concerns were brought up by the community when we went out there, I'm sure at the time, we did a survey and we determined that speeding was a factor or a concern, an issue that was validated, then that's why they qualified, and when we proceeded with the speed humps. But again, I'm not saying that in Willard we don't have issues, but this is still something that we would need to validate and assess, just to again, if we decide to go one way or another, we just need to be consistent with our policies. Jaime Chavez, you have your hand
Yeah,
up.
I just want to chime in on that one, because many years ago when I was on the Willard Task Force, I brought this question up, but I was told that the reason why we couldn't do it because of the emergency vehicles would not be able to get through at a certain time, or it'd be an obstacle. Now, has that changed? And that was about 10 years ago, 12 years ago with Pastor John at St. Peter's Church. So I'm trying to figure out, was that something that changed from then till now on the speed bumps? Because, and also personally, I'm about it because my car got totaled, parked in front of my house by someone speeding. So I kind of have a gripe against it because on the side where I'm at is right by the soccer field down the street from Gay. And I mean, they fly by, they hit cars and hit and runs. But I'm just concerned now because first it was because emergency vehicles and now it's a whole new thing. Could you kind of elaborate on that, or you don't know what would be the difference between then and now?
No, I mean, definitely emergency vehicles has always been something that we need to consider. In fact, before we can even, even if, let's say we did identify that there's a speeding concern or speeding issue, we need to go through our fire department so that they can assess what level of impact speed humps could have on their ability to respond to emergencies in the neighborhood. So that's still a factor that gets considered. A lot of times, they either say, and it comes to the point where you kind of have to, I guess, weigh both things. Do you want to slow down your everyday driver, despite of the impacts it's going to have on potential emergency response times? And if so, then maybe that's something that gets, addressed at the time. But if the community feels like that's something that they don't want to, what do you call it? If it's too much of a risk to not be able to get emergency response there on time in the event of them being needed, then maybe we look at different ways to help reduce the speeding if ever identified. In the case over there by, I think, Civic Center, we ended up doing traffic circles, and that's something that we just started doing maybe in the past 5 or 6 years. That wasn't something that we used to do. So in any event, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if speeding is validated and we identify that there is in fact a speeding problem, speed humps is not the only thing that we look at nowadays. There's various other things that we can look into to help with that situation.
Frank?
Irene?
Yes, I mean, Mr. Castaneda, if I can just add or ask. So we started a conversation with Mr. Frank Ariano with traffic engineering, and he was very open to some of our ideas and concerns. But I think what would be helpful is to know what is the process. So there was a speed trailer on Parton, I think it was installed a year and a half ago, and it tracked, during that time, everyone was in quarantine. The whole environment of our city was different. But speed assessment has not been done recently. But if we knew a little bit more about what the process was, the very first stage is speed trailers, for example. The second stage is whatever it is. I think that would help us to know what the options are and what we can do as a community. Just to let you know, the rest of our meeting, we're going to be talking about some qualitative and quantitative data that we can start looking at ourselves to help make the case. As you can hear from our comments, we're very passionate about this. We live and breathe it every day. Some of our Ring cameras are capturing people speeding. We're even debating, do we capture a bunch of video from all of our neighbors to really plead our case? So if you can help us out, and I don't know if you have the answer today, but share with us what is the process.
We do have a policy in place that I can share as well when I send over these plans that we currently are displaying here. But if I remember correctly, the policy is that we in a residential street posted 25 miles per hour, we need to be at least at 34 or 33 miles per hour on the 85th percentile. So 85% of vehicles are going at, are driving 33 or faster after that to be considered a speeding problem. Anything less than that, I believe that's when we start looking at implementing the trailers that you said you had there at some point. My guess is that back when we determined that a trailer was an option was because when we did the survey, it probably came back anywhere between that 25 and 33 or 34 mile per hour range. And so while we couldn't do anything in terms of establishing speed humps, we at least tried to help the situation that was there, by putting out those trailers that, even though we realize it's temporary, but it does provide some relief. And then our trailers that we have now do record the various speeds of vehicles going, through the area. And so we're able to provide that data to our police department so that they can, if we determine is necessary, they can go out there and help us out with maybe some police enforcement as well. So rather than just sending them out there at a time frame where speeding normally is not an issue, we're able to give them a good 1 hour time slot where they're the most effective. And so that's what those trailers help us. And again, when they're out there, they do have the Santa Ana police logo and they do stand out. So at least while they're there, I think they do provide a little bit of relief from those drivers that would otherwise, I don't know, do what they normally do, which is, not necessarily always drive the speed limit.
Okay, yes, thank you. If you could share that policy with us, and then just from as a group, we'll continue having conversations with your office and Frank Arellano. I know the roundabouts was a solution that he thought could be a possibility, and that might be a good solution for our community.
Yes, and I know Frank is very involved in with all the neighborhoods as it relates to traffic. And again, my group, we're in charge of, or we've taken the lead in applying for all these grant applications to try to, bring in these improvements to the city. But we do work together with Frank to come up with ideas and solutions to, sometimes, we're scratching our heads trying to figure out, well, how can we make it better? But, Frank has gone very creative. And I think as a team, we've all, we're looking out for the best of the community, just find different ways. And then, like I said earlier, traffic engineering is never a one-stop shop. It's ever evolving. And what we did once, at some location may not be working anymore, and we need to go back and retweak it. We make some modifications to make it effective again. And it's a constant communication and feedback from the community that's there every day, seeing the problems as they come up. And it's us going out there and trying to figure out ways to make it better. So yeah, we're here to help as best we can. And but it definitely starts with getting your feedback and being in constant communication whenever these situations arise. So that's all for me. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Again, thank you all for your time. Really, really appreciate it. I know I kind of went a little bit longer than you probably hoped. It's late in the night, but we really wanted to make sure that you're aware that of what everything we're trying to do, and really get your feedback. And we'll continue to communicate. It's like I said, it's not a one-stop shop. It's constant communication and finding ways to make it better.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for joining us, and for letting our voice be heard as well. But yes, if you could share, especially the grant information that you're applying for, those areas, and then the formal policy for some of these the other petitions that we talked about.
Yes, yes, I will do that, absolutely. And just a quick reminder, please, on your comments regarding the permit parking program would be very much appreciated as well. Thank you all for your time, and I'll let you continue with your meeting, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elisa. Appreciate it.
Okay, so thank you everyone for hanging in there. We have a few more very important updates and announcements. And it looks like we had a few more people join the call, so welcome. We just had Mr. Robert Castaneda from Traffic Engineering give us an update on the permit parking process and some feedback that they're looking to collect. But Ms. Gay, I don't know if you can see the screen. Just wanted to let everybody know that we have an important event coming up, the Neighborhood Dumpster Day and Community Cleanup Day. It's coming up Saturday, March 5th. Gay, do you want to talk a little bit about what we're doing that day?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. Yes, I am the chair for the Neighborhood Cleanup Days, and they echo the exact days of our quarterly garage sales in Santa Ana. They seem to work effectively. Actually, we don't do very much advertising, and lo and behold, those bins fill up the day of. So people are starting to get wind that these are held on garage sale days. Some are taking stuff out of the bins and some are putting stuff in the bin. So what we've done our last cleanup day is that we incorporated the kids and my other nonprofit group, and we went around the neighborhood and we picked up trash. It was very, very honorable volunteering, and the boys are now they're fully aware of throwing trash anywhere in our neighborhood because they've had to pick it up. So we had a really good time. I want to encourage people to come out. I want to invite the community to come out, and sometimes when you clean up your own community, you become part of it. So that's my goal. We will be providing lunch. Is that correct, Irene?
Yes.
Yes, providing lunch and the tools that we need. It goes very quickly, so please spread the word. We'll send this out to all our community partners, and let's make a fun day of it.
Thank you. And the location will be on the corner of 15th and Parton, right by the Willard Playground.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. And hopefully we don't have hail and thunder that day. It's just a nice warm day. Okay, another super exciting news related to cleanup and keeping our community clean. We just learned from the city. So Republic Services is the new trash vendor that won the contract here in Santa Ana. They put that up for review. And so they are starting July 1st. And as part of the initiative, as a city, they're doing a clean neighborhood initiative. And part of that, we are receiving 14 trash cans, and what we'll call them community trash cans. So these will be placed in either a corner or a public access area, and will be serviced weekly by the Republic Services. So we're super excited about this. This was an initiative of ours that we brought up a few months back because Willard Intermediate Park or Willard Intermediate Fields is a place where a lot of visitors come, but it's also a place that collects a lot of trash. So I'll open it up for a few minutes. If there are any areas of that you feel that the trash can should be placed, you can mention them now. The city is looking for our feedback. So definitely, just to kick it off, we are looking to place at least 4 to 6 trash cans around Willard Intermediate. It is a very central location, but any other locations that you would like to see, please mention them now, and then we can add that to our feedback.
I mean, selfishly, I would like one on 10th and Parton, but I want them to go wherever is best for the entire community. definitely around Willard, I think is fantastic because so many kids walk to and from school. And I see a lot of kids in the morning eating their breakfast or whatever on their way walking to school. And if they had a convenient place to throw, you know, the wrapper or the napkin or whatever their breakfast is wrapped in, I think that would be great. And then after school, when the ice cream men and, you know, the elote man, they come by, if there's an easy way for the kids to throw it away, throw their trash, then they would. Right now there's not, and so they just end up throwing it in the street. But yeah, anywhere is best for the community. But of course, personally and selfishly, I would want one on 10th and Parton. But again, we don't have to do that. I just want it convenient for the entire neighborhood. I would say around El Sol too, if we could put at least one or two over there, because the kids are eating breakfast and they're you know, eating ice cream or whatever after school. So if there's one or two that we could put over by El Sol, that I think would be good too.
Great. Yeah, definitely. I'll add that to the list. Nathaniel, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I was thinking about all the troquitas in the neighborhood. So I know there's one that's right behind Big Saver. So at least two there, I think would be really good. And then I thought for a while that the crepes and waffles troquita, it was a trailer for a while, but now they're back with the troquita. So wherever they set up shop, I know they've moved around a couple of times, but I think that would be helpful as well. I know there's also a white troquita that's on, I think it's on Van Ness a lot of the time. So maybe reaching out to them and saying, hey, how many would you need here might be effective.
Okay, no, that's a great idea. I think they're each responsible for having their own trash. I know Violeta's right here on the Raspados on 15th and Parton. She tends to clean out her own trash. Just a note about the crepes truck. It did start off as a little trailer. I know his backstory. He when COVID hit, he lost his job at a crepe shop. And so because he knew how to make crepes, opened up a little trailer. He got so popular that he got a food truck. And most nights they're on Main and off of Warner, where all the taco trucks are normally there. And so he'll come to the neighborhood occasionally, but he is really busy.
Yeah, I was just concerned because I thought his trailer was for sale, and then I didn't see him. But then I saw the troquita. I was like, oh, okay, we upgraded. Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
yes.
There's a crepe and waffle guy that has been parking on 10th and Parton like Tuesday, Wednesday. I haven't been over there, but there's a truck that parks right here, 2-3 times a week anyway.
Oh, okay.
So
Is it a big truck?
yeah, he's like pink and purple.
Yes, it's called Gina's Crepes.
Okay.
So he lives on 10th and Parton. He's your neighbor across the street, I believe.
Okay. But he has his truck open, like he's selling out of there.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Well, good to know. It's good. Now I can go try
It's very good.
it.
And maybe I know they're responsible for their own trash, but like, at the end of the streets, when people leave the general vicinity of the troquita, it might be effective.
Good point. Okay, we'll put together like a draft map with some locations and share it at the next meeting before we submit our feedback. But just super excited about that news.
And then Irene, I don't know if you saw, but Martha posted some comments in the chat regarding locations. She mentioned the Orange County's credit union has one that was placed there years ago when St. Peter and the Willard Neighborhood Task Force received a city donation. And Violeta has two from that same donation, also 15th and either Ross or the corner after that has a trash can in the corner landscape.
Yes, that good point that there are a couple already or a few in the neighborhood. And what I love about those trash cans is that the sign says help keep Willard clean. So I love the signage that it has on there. So yes, the Willard Neighborhood Task Force put those in. Great start.
Okay, this is Gay. I just want to be careful that these trash cans are for the members of the community. They're not for the vendors and their sales. So let's just keep that in mind. We're not there to cater to the vendors. I have a different opinion about them. when they block my sidewalks and I can't ride my bike. So, but that's a different subject. So let's just keep that in mind. Definitely for the kids walking to school in the morning, that is a huge, huge plus. Willard is very important. Of course, it's our focal point. I don't know about the crate person. I mean, he's responsible for his trash, pick it up, you know? And that goes for any other vendor within the Willard community. That's my stand on that. We shouldn't be providing trash cans to vendors.
No, I agree with you. I said 10th and Parton because we have a bunch of kids who hang out on the corner, and it's not for the vendor, it's more for the kids who are throwing their trash on the floor. So for me, that's why I wanted 10th and Parton.
Okay, well, we'll look at a map with some locations before we submit it as a group. But yeah, just great news overall that we have 14 new trash cans that are coming in. I did want to share our friends at Santa Ana Active Streets. They've shared an invitation with us for kids ages 13 to 18, a really fantastic program called Wrench and Ride. It starts March 8th, but they are close to selling out or having all of their spots filled. And so it's a program where kids get to pick out a bike, work on it, learn how to install tires, how to change the gears, how to really work on the anatomy of the bike, learn about bike safety. And then at the end of the ride, they get a helmet, they get to keep the bike. And some of these bikes, most of them are just amazing bikes to have, worth $200-300 once they're done with them. My nephew participated in this, and he now rides his bike every day to work. He had a flat the other day, did it himself. Super proud of himself to be able to change his own gear. So really recommend this if you know any youth ages 13 to 18. It's a great program. Okay, super excited to also share that our youth fair that we started last year. This was our first annual event. We gave away backpacks, had a bunch of activities and resources for youth. We're bringing it back this year, reimagined as Dia del Niño, with a little bit more focus on just fun activities for the kids, really celebrating them. It's going to be April 30th, same in the corner of 15th and Parton. We're partnering with St. Peter Lutheran Church. So part of the event will be in their courtyard, but we're looking to expand that possibly to across the street to the Willard playground area. But we're in the planning stages right now. So if you're interested, we could really use event volunteers before or during the event. If you like arts and crafts, we'll be making some signs and doing some projects there. We're also looking for sponsors. If you work for a company that sponsors events like this, please let us know. And vendors. We are looking to possibly incorporate food into the event. So have 1 or 2 vendors sell food or lunch there, along with have resources for kids. We'll be developing a flyer and we'll share that out, but just wanted to get that on everyone's calendars last Saturday in April.
Thank you, Irene. I have been pushing that event. I did reach out to Junior Achievement of Orange County, and they're definitely interested in joining that event. Yeah, so I think it'll be good. Yeah, I have some ideas. We'll talk about that in our board meeting.
Great. Okay, we talked a lot about traffic today, so I will just give you a quick update. So we met with traffic engineering a couple of months ago, and in order to, as you can see from our conversation with Mr. Castaneda, they're really looking at data, information to substantiate if a speed pad is needed or speed bump, or if they need to do a roundabout or other infrastructure change. So there's 2 types of data, right? There's the quantitative data, which is like a speed trailer that's tracking traffic, but then there's the qualitative data, the stuff that does not get reported that residents see all the time. So we met with a group from UC Berkeley. They're part of California Walks. And they gave us 2 suggestions on things that we can do. The first one is called a street story. And I included the link here, but basically it's a website where we can track anonymously any type of reports, like a collision, near miss, like if somebody feels unsafe, something that you can't really capture with data, this is the place to put it. And so when you start to plot all of these issues that are happening, then the city can get a little bit better idea. Oh, okay, there's real, Ross is a street where there's a lot of incidences that data just cannot capture. So one example, we received a report back that the average speed on Parton Street is 23 miles an hour, and therefore does not warrant any speed bump or anything. But what it doesn't capture is that residents that live here, we drive extra slow. I drive like a grandma, I drive really slow. When you average that in with a speeder, of course, it's gonna drive down the traffic. Miss Bianca, she has a Ring camera that's constantly capturing video of people doing donuts in an intersection, speeding. And that's, again, the type of data that's not collectible, on a report. So that's the type of information that we want to collect with this street story. The second one is called a TIMS report, and it's a website that captures crashes and police reported incidences. So I dropped in here a map. This is I think it's an eight-year period that captures, this is the Willard community, any incidences or crashes. So anything in yellow is a crash. So you can see whether it's a bicycle crash or pedestrian crash, and a fatality is noted in red. So as you can see here on 15th Street, right in front of Willard, there was a fatality on this particular year, and we can download the data. So this is another tool that we plan to use in order to help tell the story about some of the areas of concern on our streets. And so this is our plan. So if anything here piques your interest, please raise your hand or reach out after the meeting. But we plan to email and share out through social media and let people know that we are starting this traffic initiative. And we will share out the links for both of those tools. So if whenever you're driving, if you see an incident, take a picture of it, or you want to include it, please think of the website and drop in your story so that we can begin to build a case. Whenever we do events, so like this April 30th event, and then we're doing the cleanup March 5th, we're going to be collecting stories there as well. So many residents in our community maybe are Spanish speakers, or they're not as comfortable typing something on a website. So we'll do some outreach there. Another tool we have is a walk assessment. And this is where we walk as a community and actually take pictures and look at intersections. So one suggestion I have is when Mr. Castaneda sends his map through, the grant map, we can go and look at those intersections and maybe provide some additional comments and feedback. And the goal is to collect all this data and meet again with traffic engineering. That's one thing they did ask. It can't just be one or two neighbors saying, oh, this is an area. I mean, Bianca, Gay, and I are kind of, we're constantly talking about how bad Parton Street is. But if there are other streets like that, we really need to gather that information so that they can prioritize. That's the one thing he said. Yes, we're going to make some changes in the community, but we need to prioritize what are the areas with most concern.
Irene, I really think that we should ask for some time on the El Sol parent-teacher parent meeting, the PTO meeting, and go and speak to the PTO El Sol parents. I mean, there's a student body of 1,200 kids there. And I know I keep pushing that only because I'm in the midst of it every day. And I see how bad it is. I experience it, and if they gave me a stop sign, I would stop the traffic. But as you know, they took it away from me because I'm not a crosswalk person or whatever. But we need a platform, and along with Willard, they have to have a parent meeting or a school parent meeting, something. And we're asked for time on their calendar and go talk to them about it. Because one-on-one is a lot of legwork. And to your point, it's not going to be because the Bianca and Irene and Gay don't want it, we need 100. We had 100 people to say their experiences. And the way to reach the majority of people are on these meetings. So I suggest that we get on the PTO, the parent-teacher meeting for El Sol, the parent-teacher meeting for Willard, and those daycare centers, and all these people that walk and drive every single day to drop off their kids and go to work and go to school. I think that's the reality. And I also think that we have to do a timestamp. Like, we just can't be getting all this data for like 6 months. We should say, by September, or, for the next 90 days, that way it gives us a little time frame of when we run a deadline. Not really a deadline, but you know what I'm trying to say, some kind of, parameters. There you go. Okay.
No, I think that's great. That's a great suggestion. Definitely, Willard has been a big supporter of our neighborhood association and doing something at El Sol. I think that's a great suggestion. And yes, a timeline is needed. So we have a couple of people on the traffic committee. We'll set up a timeline, but we definitely need more volunteers and folks to join to help make this a well-rounded group.
Yeah, because school will be out in June, and that's 4 months away.
Yep.
So the traffic will die. There won't be as much traffic as you see now because school's out. Right?
Right. Gay, can you find out when the next PTO meeting is? And
I'll take care of El Sol. I'll make sure that we get on that call and send the links and have these parents fill it out, because I know, I mean, when in the morning, I see parents literally standing there waiting for the car to stop. And so I'm like, I kind of stop that car and I tell all the parents, okay, cross now. And even the ones who are in high school, and I tell them, they go, no quieren parar. Yo sé que no quieren parar. So they're kind of timid, holding their kids' hands tight, So, I mean, I want to hear from them. I want them to say their experience, right? Because it's frustrating. What does it cost that car, knowing that the children coming to school, why don't they stop, to let the kids cross? And you know what? It's just going to get worse when that building is finalized, when those county employees are coming in and out of that civic center. It's going to get worse. One Broadway Plaza, they expect 7,000 cars to come in and out of that 40-story, whatever it is, daily. So think about that. And what obsessed me with this, all these people making all these, decisions, I don't really think they think about the citizens that walk the streets. They're thinking about, when you mentioned civic center, I'm like, okay, you're thinking about Hera, you're thinking about Caribou Industries, you're thinking about people that visit Santa Ana, but do not live in Santa Ana. There's a difference. And we have to speak up, because it's just gonna get worse.
Gay, I have a quick question, and pardon my ignorance. I know El Sol's a charter school. Do you happen to know, you may or may not, how many kids from El Sol actually live in the Willard neighborhood? I know, because charter schools bring in kids from everywhere.
We wrote, I was part of the charter. The charter says that 85% of the students that attend El Sol must be from Santa Ana. Okay, all right. And then they allow percentage as an incentive for teachers for their kids. That's
Sure.
part of their package. Okay.
Sure.
Now, I think that people that go to El Sol, and I'm just being honest, don't live in Santa Ana. I think that it's more like maybe 60%. I think they use a Santa Ana address. Okay.
Oh. Uh-huh.
But they do not live in Santa Ana. That's why, if you've ever been to El Sol in the morning, that circle is like around the corner. People are in line as far as almost Civic Center to get into El Sol. That's why I ride my bike, because it's like, I've been in that traffic. So if you have to be in that traffic every day, getting your kids to El Sol, you don't live in the neighborhood.
Right.
If you can't walk to El Sol, you don't live in the neighborhood. You're driving in. And I'm finding out, and this is just for people that come to my house, come to parties, whatever, they work for this county. They work for the city, right? And they drop their kids off at El Sol. I'm learning that too. Yeah, it's a gray area. I don't like it, but yeah, well, I'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
I was just
And how do
curious
yeah.
how many people lived in the neighborhood, because it would be great to go to like a PTA meeting. If, you know, most of the parents at the meeting lived in the neighborhood, they could definitely speak to the traffic. I mean, even if they don't live here, they're seeing the traffic and the scariness in the morning when people aren't paying attention. I mean, I get that too, but you're right. Like, living here is definitely different than driving here to drop a kid off.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was
you
just curious if you know how many kids lived in Willard, you know.
Yeah, no, I'm told 80%. That's what because I've already asked administration. I mean, I went right to the top. I said, I want a percent. They go 80%. I said, okay. But then I started asking questions one by one, right?
Yeah.
You know, oh no, I drive in from Placentia. I drive in from Corona. Yep. They drive all the way in. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
I'm
thank you.
sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
For a good next step, then we'll reach out to Willard Intermediate PTA and the El Sol. So just our meeting ran long, but it was a really good meeting, great discussion. Just wanted to remind everybody our next meeting is going to go back to Mondays. So Monday, March 8th, second Monday of the month. And I did want to acknowledge Officer Prieto, who's on the call. Did you have any comments or anything you'd like to add?
No, we're just out there still doing proactive work. So like I said, if you guys have any issues, we're here for you, and just let me know.
I just so appreciate you guys. You work so hard, and just thank you. Thank you for everything you guys do.
My pleasure, anytime.
Irene, I wanted to clarify the date. The second Monday of March is actually March 15. No, March 14.
Oh, I had the wrong one. Okay, then it'll be March 14th. Our next meeting. You're right. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for the call. It was a long one. It was a really great one. We'll share out some of this information, and please reach out if you have any questions and would like to volunteer.
Thank you.
No, we'll see you at the neighborhood cleanup, March 5th.
Yeah, we'll see you at the cleanup. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.